Hey there, it's Tracy Kiernan, and this acrylic painting tutorial is going to show you how to paint a rainbow over a field of rainbow wildflowers with acrylics on an 11 by 14 inch canvas. This is a super relaxing tutorial with the rainbow grand finale at the end, which is really fun that you would do with just one stroke. I'll show you how to paint a rainbow with just one brush stroke. And let's go over brushes and colors for this one. So there's three brushes for this one, a 3/4 flat, a number 4 round, and a number 12 bright brush. And there's quite a few colors that I'll be using for this one, especially because there's a rainbow in our picture. So we need all the colors of the rainbow. But I'll show you a way that we can kind of simplify the palette if you don't want to use this many colors. Phthalo Blue, Cerulean Blue, Titanium White, Pyrrole Red, which you can use any kind of bright red, a cad red would work for that. Dioxazine Purple, Hooker's Green Hue, Medium Magenta. We'll also be using Mars Black and Primary Yellow. So if you want to simplify this color palette, you can actually just use the primary colors and mixture colors. You can use just the dark blue, so take out the cerulean blue and mix white with the darker blue to make your light sky blue color. You'll need a lot of white to really lighten that blue up, but you can take that color out. You can take out Dioxazine Purple, and you can actually make a purple by mixing the blue and the pink together. You can take out the green, and you can mix your blue and yellow together to make your green. Black, we actually only use a teeny tiny bit of black, so that helps you kind of simplify the palette if you don't want to use all those colors. Of course, you can definitely use all the colors. I'm a huge fan of using all the colors. And let's see, you'll also need a ruler, 11 by 14 canvas, and this can work on any size canvas actually. There's no traceable for this, but it is a simple sort of landscape design where our horizon line is actually right in the center of the canvas. So I am measuring 5.5 inches from the bottom since it's a 11 inches high. So if you're doing a different size, you'll just find the center point and draw a very light horizontal line all the way across with a pencil. Doesn't need to be very dark, just a very light line. And that's going to help us with the sky in this first step. So we're going to load our paint palette with the colors Cerulean Blue and Titanium White. And actually, you really don't even need that much blue for this, just a little bit of blue, because we'll be using a lot of white. We'll be using a lot of white to make this blended sky. So it's a very simple sky, and I'm using a 3/4 flat brush. Load that in the water, kind of tap it dry. And let's start out by mixing about equal amounts of blue and white together. So that'll make a lighter version of that blue. Start at the top of your canvas. I'm going to use just full width paint strokes that go all the way across the canvas from one end to the next, and we'll be blending this. So this is going to be the darker part of our sky. This is how dark our blue is going to get. And just a little bit of water in there really helps to kind of boost the flow of that. Very simple. Actually, I'm going to add just a touch more cerulean just to make it just a tad bit darker right at the top. And then as we're working our way down, we're going to be blending lighter colors. So when I go to reload my brush, I'm going to just grab white, maybe mix it just with a little bit of blue. But the point is that I want my sky to start getting lighter as I work my way down. So as I approach the horizon line, which is that horizontal line that we drew earlier, I want that part to be the lightest part of the sky. You're blending wet on wet, so I like to start my new color below the color and then blend it up into the lighter color. So you're just gently brushing over that color, blend it up. Grab a bunch of white as you approach the bottom. It's going to turn into a very, very light blue. If you're finding that maybe you have too much paint on your brush, just get a towel and kind of wipe it off. I'm going to grab this white, and that's really going to make sure that this shows up very light because I wiped off all that extra blue. So grit this white, blend that in at the bottom. So we want the bottom of our horizon to be the lightest blue possible. It's not pure white because it still has a little bit of that blue blended into it. And just gently brush it in. You can go back at the top, maybe add another layer of that darker blue and just brush it down very gently. So you have a nice pretty gradient of dark blue to light blue. And it doesn't have to blend perfectly. If you have some darker streaks down here that look unblended, that's okay. Next, I'm going to load my paint palette with green. So this is Hooker's Green Hue. And we don't have to wait for our sky to be dry because we're going to be doing the ground next. So rinse off your 3/4 flat completely. And you know what? I'm actually going to mix some blue into this green. It's going to kind of give it this bluish green color. We'll start at the bottom, and we're going to kind of do the opposite of what we just did for the land. We're going to make it dark at the bottom, and we want it to be light at the top. So we're going to do green that's blended to white as we approach the center of the painting. So pretty much the same technique that we just did. So using your dark, and then start gradually adding white into that and blend it right on the canvas. Again, use that towel to wipe your brush off if it seems like it's overloaded with too much paint. It's easier to blend when you don't have a lot of paint on your brush. So our green is getting lighter and lighter as we go in the distance. This is a great way to create perspective in landscape paintings because our color gets lighter further away and our sky gets lighter closer to the horizon line. I'm going to bring this all the way up to the horizon line. Grab some more white. And I am actually going to go a little bit above my horizon line with this light green. I'm going to take it and I'm just going to brush it a little bit above that line. I also want to be careful with that pencil line not to smear too much of that gray pencil into my paint. But a little bit of that green, super light green, is floating up above that horizon line. So now I have my first layer of my landscape painting. Pretty gradient of dark blue to light green to dark green. On the bottom, kind of like what I did with the sky, went back with a darker layer of blue. I'm going to just grab a little bit of green, blend that in a little bit. And I want to let this dry before going on to the next step. So dry your painting. And let's get some fresh titanium white on our palette. And I'm going to switch to the 12 bright brush. I am going to do the hills, mountains next. And you could also do this with the round brush, but this is helpful with a smaller brush to get a little bit more control here. So in this painting, we have some different layers of hills that are kind of light in the distance and kind of darker forward as closer that they get. So we're going to paint our furthest mountain away first. And this is a very light blue. The challenge might be that it's the same color as the sky. So we want to paint it just slightly darker than the sky in this area. This area of the sky should be a very, very light blue. So if you just add just a teeny bit more cerulean into that, it'll show up a little bit better. So just a low hill. It's maybe like 1.5 to 2 inches high. And I like to do this thing where I blend a little bit of white at the bottom of the hill and blend it up so that my hill is a little bit darker at the top and lighter at the bottom. Create some pretty perspective in your hill. I'm going to do another hill next, and this one's going to be overlapping what we just painted. So I'm going to mix green and blue together. I still have a little bit of white on my brush, So kind of green, blue, and white, but it's got to be darker because this one's going to be closer. So I'm going to start down here in the middle of that light blue hill, do kind of a flat, wavy line, and I'm going to take this all the way across. It kind of dips down a little bit. I don't want to cover the hill I just painted. Kind of dips up. And there's the outline of that kind of flat hill. And then I'm going to make it lighter on the bottom. So it's kind of that darker greenish blue color at the top. And then a little bit of white at the bottom and blend that. And you don't have to blend it perfectly. In fact, if you want to just paint that mountain solid blue-green color and not worry about the white blending at the bottom, you can do it that way. I'm just filling this in. So the bottom of this mountain hill touches where that horizon line is. So that bottom part, it might dip down just a little bit below the horizon line, but it's pretty much where the horizon line is. Without rinsing my brush, I'm going to grab my Cerulean Blue and I'm going to do another mountain. This one's actually behind that green sort of low hill that we just painted, but it's in front of that light blue hill. So it ends up being just a little bit darker and more blue. And then I'm going to blend white on the bottom of that. Wipe my brush off to help myself blend that a little bit better. And if we have to touch up that hill that's supposed to be in front of it, we can do that. But that's kind of a darker blue than the one behind it, and this one's more green. So I'm going to do another layer of green on the edge of this, just to make it look like it is in front. And just lightly blend that together. Do a little bit more white towards the bottom of this. And then I'm going to bring this down a little bit further down. So we are below our horizon line at this point. And I'm just adding a little bit of white on the bottom of this just to kind of lighten that hill up better on the bottom. I'm going to add primary yellow to my paint palette, and I'm going to start painting this yellow-green color in my landscape. And I don't need to rinse my brush for this. I'm going to grab yellow, grab my green, kind of loosen it a little bit with some water so it's kind of a light yellow-green color. And so if you look at the final picture of this, we have more of this like yellowish green color in our landscape. So I'm going to take this and it's going to kind of overlap that back hill area. And you can see how it kind of benefits us to have that white on the bottom of that. It makes that hill behind it look a little bit like a little misty effect with that white behind this spring yellow-green color. I'm just going to take this and still kind of hilly, so it's flat, and then maybe it dips down. And then I'm going to fill that in. So yes, I am below my horizon line, so these are kind of hills that are closer, kind of still kind of background hills, but they're not further away than those other ones that we painted. And then this one back here, this is kind of a higher hill that goes up. A little bit of white on the bottom to kind of blend that down. A little bit of dark on the top edge of it. Then I'm taking this yellowish green color. I kind of thin that paint down a little bit and just letting it kind of fade away down into the mid-ground of the landscape. I'm going to switch to my 3/4 flat. So we have kind of bigger areas here that I want to paint. So I'm going to go back with my yellow-green color. I'm just going to lightly lay this color over all of this green. But I don't want to take away from that first layer. I still kind of see that first layer underneath it. I'm going to make this part, this hill, a little bit darker so we can see the edge of that one. So if you don't want this many layers of hills and mountains in your painting, you can simplify it. You can just do the bluish green mountains in the distance, and if you want to skip these kind of closer yellow-green hills, you can. I want the bottom of this to be a little bit lighter so that we can kind of see where it divides up. There's going to be trees that are hanging out on this hill that kind of dips down. And just gently brush this color down into the rest of the painting. The bottom part, we're going to leave that kind of that darker green color down here. I'm actually going to add just a little bit more kind of a darker green layer down here. So this is the closer part of the painting where our wildflowers are going to show up. Get some more Hooker's Green Hue. I really want to try to outline these hills. So if we do like a dark green outline on the top, we can see where that division is. This one as well. Next, you want to kind of just let everything dry before doing this step. I'm going to show you how to paint the cypress trees that are kind of way in the distance, and we have some bushes and really simple dabby sort of plants growing way in the distance. So I'm going to grab my Phthalo Blue, this is that dark blue color, and we'll be using the Hooker's Green Hue, so you want to make sure you have some green still on your palette. And this is the number 12 bright brush. So I'm going to grab my green and mix blue into it. So about equal parts phthalo blue and green. This is going to make a really dark bluish green color. And I didn't rinse this brush off all the way. I still have lighter colors in it, but that's okay. And I'm going to use kind of the corner of my brush to dab these bushes. And the nice thing about this is it doesn't have to be super detailed because it's so far away. We can really just kind of dot our brush to create these plants. So these are really far away plants that are on the top of this yellow-green hill line. And then these ones over here are actually going to be more of the cypress style. So these ones are kind of longer vertical cypress trees. So they're a little bit wider at the bottom, and then they kind of go to a point. So I'm just using the corner of my brush to kind of dab that, and it gets thinner and kind of goes to a point. So we can do as many as we want. I like to do, these cypress trees do show up in a lot of my landscape paintings that have kind of a field of flowers. They're so pretty. And they're really easy to paint too. And then we can add more variety. So these ones kind of got shorter towards the left, and then way back here we just have little dabs of maybe bushes. And we can add some more of that over here on the left. I'm going to rinse my brush off and take this a step further and do some shadowing in those trees and bushes that I just painted. So I'm going to rinse my 12 bright off and grab my round brush and actually add some Pyrrole Red to my palette. So we can make shadowy green colors by using the opposite color of green, which happens to be red. So this is the Pyrrole Red color. We only need a little tiny bit. We'll also use this later when we do some red flowers. But I'm going to take that red and blend that in, or mix that in with the green. So that makes a really dark, shadowy green color. Now I'm just going to go back, and I'm not going to paint over all of the tree, just towards the bottom, and pick a side. I just picked the right side and do just little darker areas. Gives those trees some shadow. You can dab some darker shadowy colors in the bushes back here. I'm just dabbing the end of the brush to create that effect. I could also use the round brush to maybe paint a few more cypress trees. I'm going to do another one right here, and this one's actually going to be the tallest one. So using the green to create that, I'm just doing little kind of curvy, wavy strokes that kind of form upwards to form the shape of the tree. And I can go back with my shadow red-green color on the bottom, kind of make it shadowy on the bottom. Maybe stipple some smaller plants. And I'm going to highlight these trees. So this is kind of opposite of that shadow thing that we just did. So I took white and yellow and mixed that into that greenish red color. So it's a lighter color. And just a few kind of curvy light paint strokes towards the top of the tree gives it a little bit of highlight. Next, we're going to paint all of these fun, colorful wildflowers. And I'm going to start with purple. So this is Dioxazine Purple in the round brush. I'm going to do those purple lupine style flowers that we see. So these are in like this column of little purple flowers. Then they all just kind of form a column that kind of goes up and into a point. And we can achieve that by using purple and white. So I started with purple, but then I grabbed some white and I let that white kind of blend. Each of those paint strokes are just like little kind of, they're not dots, they're just kind of like strokes that are kind of pushing downwards. So they're kind of oval paint strokes. And the purple and the white just kind of blend on the canvas to create different color variations. So I'm going to do another purple lupine. And this one I actually started at the top. And so it doesn't matter if you start at the top or the bottom. You might find one way is easier than the other. But it's got to get wider at the bottom and it's narrow at the top. So you can do your purple and then go back and brush over with the white. And that white just kind of blends with the purple. You could also mix some phthalo blue into that. So purple and phthalo blue give you this like purplish blue color. So we'll do another one over here on the right. Start at the top, so little strokes forming that shape. It gets wider on the bottom. You'll find that this goes faster once you kind of get the hang of the technique. And we can grab some blue, maybe mix some blue into that purple, and then get our white and go back over with a few white strokes, and that really helps that to pop. I'm going to do the same kind of flower, but use the color medium magenta next. So this is the exact same technique, only we're using a different color. So I'm going to rinse my brush off. And we can start with the pink. Pick where you want it to go. So there's actually no reason why I'm not doing any in the center. I just decided to put these ones on the left and the right, but you can put some in the middle. They have to be lower in the painting because these are up close, they're larger, so they're lower towards the edge of the canvas. And this one, another one right here. So you start with your base color, then you can grab white. Sometimes it's easier to do all your first color first and then go back and do the white, or you can do the white as you go along and kind of alternate with loading your brush in pink and then white. So I'm going to do a different style of flowers. We're going to really just, because there's so many flowers in this, we're really going to simplify this. These are going to be petaled flowers. This one's going to be kind of like a cone flower style. And these are just regular petals, but that middle piece is kind of going to be at the top. And these pink petals are just kind of curving downwards. Then I like to grab little bits of white and just let that white kind of blend with that pink before it dries, kind of highlights it. And then if you like that style, you can do more. So you're just using your round brush and just kind of brushing outward to create the rounded petal shape. Some of these you can do like a tulip style and just paint like a little oval. And then I'm going to do a few dots. So these are flowers that are further in the distance and they're far away, so they're not big, they don't have form. So just very lightly, you see how light that is? It's not thick, bright layers of paint. It's very light, thin, translucent color dots. I'm going to switch to white, or switch to yellow. So I'm going to mix yellow and white together actually. It's very helpful to mix white into your yellow just to make sure it stands out, because if you just use pure yellow, it's not going to show up very bright. I'm just doing very basic, like 5-petaled flowers. And you're going to find that once you really get the hang of just painting all these little intricate flowers, very simple. They're not actually super intricate, they're simple, but it's kind of a zen moment where you just kind of don't think too hard and you're just doing a bunch of random flowers everywhere in this lower part of our landscape. So you do want to kind of think like if you're painting back here, these are going to be like little dots, and then lower into the painting, they actually will have more form and shape. So maybe this one has a little bit more shape because it's closer. That's how you can create perspective with your flowers. I'll do some that are just white, so maybe they're like white daisies. And if you want to be more detailed with your up-close flowers, you can render them more realistic. We are going to paint some dark centers for the flowers after this layer dries, and also stems and leaves and grass. The next thing we're going to do is use the Pyrrole Red color, so that bright red color, to paint some poppy style flowers. And I'll do a few that are kind of further away, but maybe some that are bigger. So these are more rounded and larger petal flowers. Even take some white and maybe blend a little bit of white into the red. But because they're part of like this bigger picture of a whole bunch of wildflowers everywhere, they don't have to be super detailed. So little big rounded 5-petaled flowers, a little bit of white for blending. You can do the little dots in the distance. I love this red and how it looks against the green. Maybe there's a bigger one over here where we can just see like the side of it. Petals that are kind of overlapping each other. And then a little bit of white to blend that in. I'm going to next start detailing the centers of the flowers, and then I'll start doing the stems and leaves and grass. But first, I'm going to do yellow, and let's see, we'll do the center of this cone flower with the yellow. And that's not really showing up super bright because yellow is an opaque color and not dark. So maybe we'll need to make a darker color on our palette. Maybe some of these do have the yellow and it shows up, but I'm gonna mix a brown on my palette actually. So I'm gonna take red and blue. And white. It's actually making kind of a purple color. And we'll do a little bit of yellow in there to kind of make it more of a brown color. So red, yellow, blue, a little bit of white to lighten it up. And that shows up a little bit better. So we can use this brown that we just made to do like little dots in the center of some of these flowers. If you want to, you can even use black and do like little black dots in the centers. I'm going to rinse my brush and I'm going to start working on grass, stem, leaves. So we can start with this green, and actually I'm going to load my palette with Mars Black. So this is the first time Mars Black is showing up. I'm going to take my green and loosen it down a little bit with water and just add a little bit of black in there. And this should show up on the bottom because this is a very dark green. So I'm just going to take this and do little stems that are attached to our flowers, or they look like they're attached. So just kind of in between some of the flowers. And then I can take this and just kind of loosely drag my brush up in some areas. So some of these are just grass blades and they're not attached to the flowers. But we're starting to add some texture of green in our flower area. So if you're doing grass blades that are further away, those ones would be kind of thinner, shorter, and you're painting them very lightly, versus towards the bottom, kind of pressing harder on your brush to make kind of thicker, darker paint strokes. And since I have the black on my palette now, I'm going to actually add little black dots in some of these red poppy style flowers. You can kind of do little stippled black dots in the center of some of these other yellow and white flowers. I'm going to layer on some more white flowers. So after we did our layer of grass, I'm just going to do a few more petaled white flowers. There's one big one back here, so white daisies. And then one down here. Little one way back here, and then another one right here. We can do some of those far away little white dots. And then I'll use yellow to do the center of these two white daisies. So just little stippled dots. And then add some more little dots in the distance. I'm going to do another layer of green grass. And this is, our first layer was a darker green. I'm going to do a lighter yellow green. So I'm going to take yellow and mix that in with the Hooker's Green Hue. A little bit of white, a little bit of water too. So that water helps thin the paint down so that we can do kind of these flowy paint strokes. And I'm going to start on the bottom edge of the canvas and just kind of drag my brush up using that edge of the canvas to help kind of start the line, and then just drag it up and kind of release the pressure. So that's creating the really pretty light colored grass blades. And then If I'm painting in the distance back here, I'm doing thinner, lighter paint strokes because it's further away. These are smaller, so they're not big and thick. This light green layering just really adds pretty texture and detail to our wildflower area of the painting. So you can bring your texture up pretty far. I brought mine to kind of the center part of the landscape, but you really wouldn't see the grass blades much further than that. I am just going to continue on with the details. So some of these flowers, I'm just going to add maybe a little bit of pink to some of these white sort of tulip shaped flowers that I painted earlier. You can go back over some of your petals with a second coat of paint if needed. Some of these lupine style flowers, you can even go back over those with a second coat to brighten them up. I'm going to do some more darker grass pieces next. So that is that dark or black that mixes with the green. Water it down just slightly, and I'm really just kind of going in between these flowers. I'm not trying to, I don't want to overlap any of this green. I suppose I could overlap green over the flowers, but I didn't really want to do that. So I'm just going in between a lot of these with that another layer of dark. I'm going to do another larger poppy flower. Let's put this on the left side. So this one's kind of a side view. And then little white strokes on the bottom, just kind of drag that up, blends with the red. So as you're adding more and more detail to your wildflowers, you definitely don't have to copy what I do. You can, but you might find, like I said earlier, it really is kind of a Zen moment where you're just layering on more detail, adding more flowers, kind of following that rule of bigger flowers that are closer, smaller in the distance. I'm going to do a few more stems in there. We are almost done with this flower step, which is the part that takes the longest. And I will show you how we can do that rainbow pretty soon. Just a few more darker stems in there. So for the rainbow, you need to get a clean water cup. You don't want to do this with dirty water, dirty paint water. And just sort of with the wet paintbrush, this is the 3/4 flat brush, by the way, sort of decide the track for your rainbow. And this is just water, so if you mess up, it will dry and disappear and you won't see it anymore. So just kind of practice that paint stroke. So you're using the full width of the brush and you're just doing a rainbow shape. We're practicing this because we are going to paint our rainbow using one continuous paint stroke like what we're doing here. So we want to just kind of practice that motion. If you need to dry your rainbow, you can just use a hair dryer, dry it real quick and then re-practice it, or you can practice this on like a piece of scratch paper. And we're going to apply I'm just going over this multiple times. It's going to be thicker than what it actually will be. And now that I have kind of my rainbow shape figured out, I'm going to take my brush and take a round brush and my 3/4 flat brush, and I am going to make a little dab of paint on the brush with each color of the rainbow. So I have to make my orange, and to make orange you use Pyrrole Red and you mix primary yellow with it. So mixing those two together, you're going to find that you need more yellow to make the orange, and then apply that. You just dab on a little bit of paint on the edge of your 3/4 flat. And then I'm going to get some pure yellow. Use that to apply to the brush. And then green, we don't have to rinse our brush for the green. It's okay if yellow mixes with it. So green, that's the Hooker's Green Hue. Okay, so we're going to rinse, and then I'm going to grab Cerulean Blue for my blue. I'm actually going to use Phthalo as my indigo color. So I know you can't see that on the camera there, but I'm adding that light blue to the end of the bristles there. And I'm going to use Phthalo Blue for indigo. If you want, you can just not do indigo, and you can just go ahead and do the purple instead. And then Dioxazine Purple. So yeah, you have to make sure when you're applying those that you do leave yourself enough room for all of those colors. And again, if you are super nervous, like I am right now with it, practice it first on a separate piece of paper until you really get the hang of it. You feel confident about what this is going to do. And then go back over. So my rainbow, my wet rainbow line is still there. That is allowing my color to flow because there is a wet line already there. It's not a dripping line, but it's a wet line. It's enough for you to see and follow that path. So you take your brush, make sure your red is facing the top, otherwise you're going to have an upside down rainbow. Use a full width and go along that arc that you created. And this is a really magical moment in the painting where it creates a rainbow. I had to pick my brush up, like you see in the center, there's like a blank spot where I had to pick my brush up. My hand just kind of locked and I had to pick it up. So if that happens, just go back and make sure it's lined up, and then go back over your paint stroke. So my rainbow kind of faded on the right side. And I think that's okay because a lot of times rainbows, when they appear, there's like a darker side where the color is more vibrant, and then maybe in the distance or it kind of fades on one end. So I like that realistic effect. But if you want it to be more consistent, you can reload your brush. You just want to be really careful when you reload it that you're applying the color the same way you applied it initially. So I'm going back over this. It is kind of smearing it. At some point, you're going to have to say, okay, I need to stop. Because if you keep brushing it too much, it's going to smear too much and it's all going to blend the same color. We don't want that to happen. Just gently kind of going over it. But I like how vibrant it is on the left, and I like how it fades away. So I'm going to leave it like that. We're going to call it good. Actually, over here on the left, I could bring these bushes over here up and overlap, but I'm actually going to take this and make it go down. So it goes all the way down to the edge of that hill right there. See, the more you mess with it, the more it might ruin it. So you have to decide to leave it alone at some point. And so that was the rainbow step. So that was super fun. I'm going to do some clouds in the sky next. And I know clouds can be frustrating and tricky. I'm going to just do very basic white clouds. No other color, just white clouds. And use the 12 bright brush. This is the 1/2 inch flat brush. I like to add the white to the end of the brush and then wipe it off because I'm going to do this dry brush style. So it's not thick, opaque white paint. It's translucent, it's see-through. So I got to wipe the brush off so that when I do these clouds, when I make my little mark on the canvas, I have to actually work to see that color. So I'm just dabbing this using the end of the brush to form like a little saucer shape for the cloud. And you can see, because it's see-through, we have a lot of that sky color showing through, and that helps us out. These are very translucent clouds. You can make your clouds smaller, kind of lower in the sky and flatter, and then kind of big and puffier higher in the sky, or you can do them all the same size shape. I'm going to do kind of big one up here. Sometimes it helps to do rounded strokes, so see how I'm kind of circling my brush to form the shape of the cloud. Dabbing it, so you really have to work to get that color. If a lot of color's showing up, it means you're not doing it dry brush style. You have to wipe off the brush. Up in this area, we already have a very light color in the sky, so if you need to maybe add a little bit more white to your brush towards the lighter parts of the sky. So this one, a little bit too bright, so wipe the brush off, and I'm going to use kind of a dry brush to blend it up and then just form the shape of the cloud. If you want to add a little more dimension in your clouds, you don't have to do this. But if I'm doing just white for clouds, sometimes I like to take another layer of white and just go over the top edges, and you're only adding brighter color on the top edges and kind of blending it down. That gives your cloud a little bit more brightness and highlight on the very, very top of the cloud. Then I'm going to do another one over here in the upper left. You're just kind of pressing and turning your brush to form the shape of the cloud. Letting the edges kind of fade off into the rest of the sky. Kind of gets flat and stretched. But then I'm going to take a little bit more white and then go back just on the top edge of this one. Gives it a little bit extra brightness. See how it kind of highlights that cloud? The final touch-up I'm going to do to this is have some of my green bushes on the left side of the rainbow overlap the bottom, and you absolutely don't have to do this, but I just decided I kind of wanted it that way. So I'm just going to go back with green. If you want, you can add maybe a little bit of the dark blue to your brush, like the same color we used in the beginning to create these, and just a little layer of bush that's kind of overlapping right there. And then I decided to just kind of maybe go back over some of the other bushes, maybe extend this little green area a little bit further to the right. And that is the conclusion of how to paint rainbow wildflowers. Hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching, and thanks for painting with me.